Before we go off to college, we anticipate that these next 4 years of our lives will be filled with fun, parties, friends, and laughter. That may be the case for some, but the other side of college is more common and the true reality. This is a side that requires a lot of planning, work, and time. The new workload can overwhelm students, and it usually leads to procrastination or an overall lack of motivation to complete tasks. Motivation can be an ongoing struggle for all college students, but although it can be hard at times, it is what helps us progress and get work done for our classes. Students can lose motivation in college for a variety of reasons, ranging from being unsure of what to pick as a major, not liking the courses they are enrolled in, or, on a more serious note, anxiety and depression. Although that may sound intimidating and stressful, there are strategies and resources that we can use to navigate this challenge, as we will discuss in this presentation. For our interviews, we interviewed a variety of people to collect both their thoughts and opinions on why they feel people lack motivation and why people procrastinate. Lauren Sharp interviewed her athletic academic advisor, Ryan Sinnott, and Kara Gray interviewed a sales support administrator for Grove Technology Solutions, Nicole Gray, and a marketing executive for MERS Aesthetics, Megan Springmeyer. During each of their interviews, Lauren Sharp and Kara Gray asked a series of questions relating to the topics of motivation and procrastination and documented the answers. At the end of the presentation, we will share the results and how we tied our sources to the information collected.
What do you believe stops students from being motivated?
So I think there's two different ways to look at this. I think the first way is just students who come from privileged backgrounds may believe that they're just going to get handed things right away, or that things are going to become easy for them to accomplish. So they lack that motivation to work hard and attain their goals because they just believe, if I just do the bare minimum that's asked of me, I'm still gonna reach whatever level of success they want to achieve. But I think inversely, I think there's students who see that the goals that they have never been attained by somebody who looks like them or who comes from the same sort of, let's say, socioeconomic background or the same neighborhood, whatever the case may be. So they just don't set their goals as high, or they're just not motivated because they think even if I try hard, I'm not going to succeed just because of systemic barriers that are in place. So I think those two, although they work very differently on how they impact students' motivation, I think those are both critical factors that impact one's ability to stay motivated or to develop some sort of motivation.
Okay. How can students stay motivated during stressful points in their college career?
I think a lot of that revolves around having a good support system of just whether it be friends, family, whatever the case may be, just having a good support system, even if it's like a professor, an academic advisor, another staff or faculty member on campus who they can kind of just vent to about things, especially as it relates to their academic progress, if they're struggling in a certain class or not. It just allows them to stay motivated and keep their hopes high in terms of accomplishing good grades in those areas. But then I think the outside part of that as well from a social standpoint is knowing what kind of helps you decompress from all the stress that you put on yourself and is put on you by others in terms of academics. So if it's going to the beach, if it's fishing, whatever the case may be, just finding things that can help you completely disassociate from your academic goals and what you need to get done on a weekly basis, to just be like, okay, I can just live my life. I don't have to worry about what's due tomorrow or the next day. So that's medium-sized things to do, but on a smaller scale, just making sure you eat lunch and you're able to socialize during lunch. Same thing with breakfast and dinner, just taking those break periods during the day, because if you go 24/7, 365, you're going to get burnt out really quick in whatever you may do, and especially with your academic endeavors.
And what are some ways students can stop procrastinating, in your opinion?
I think the biggest would probably be just being able to prioritize what they need to get done. So some sort of goal setting with their work that they need to do. So coming up with finals, understanding what's due when do you need to start studying for certain exams? Do I need to work independently or do I have to work with a group? Setting all those meetings up, just so you know, and you kind of have a checklist of, okay, got to get this done first to make sure it's done on time and done well, and then continue that progress through the rest of your list. So I think that is a major part of being able to stay motivated is just, if you know what you need to do, that'll always keep you motivated as well.
What do you think causes students to procrastinate?
There's a lot. I think there's a lot of distractions, obviously, when you get to the college level. And obviously, as a student athlete, just the athletic kind of distractions that you receive, but also just the social ones, especially if your friend group is not the most academically, I guess, goal-oriented students. They're just going to be the students that are hanging out, doing whatever on a Thursday night instead of studying for the test on Friday. So surrounding yourself with good people who also have the similar academic interests as you, because then it'll be easier for you to be like, hey guys, I got to study for an exam. It'll just be easier. But I think that social media, I think, plays some sort of impact to it. Just that kind of wormhole that you can be able to get down. But I think most importantly, it's those social distractions within reality of there's just too much going on for you to say no. And that's when you start losing track of your assignments and stuff like that.
What advice would you give to someone who tends to procrastinate more than others?
I would say, first off, going back to that prioritization, figuring out the big picture goals of what do you want to do in life, or anything else, but specifically within college, what do you want to get out of this? What do you want to do in life? Where do you see yourself in 10 years from now? And then making those smaller plans of, okay, I need to get these classes done to get into grad school, or I need to get an A on this exam to enter this major at UNCW. Whatever the case may be, just having that large goal in mind and then breaking it down into smaller bits. Because once you see the smaller bits, it's a lot easier to manage that stuff. Whereas if you just say, oh, I want to be a veterinarian, that's hard to prioritize things because you don't know exactly what you need to do. But once you break it down and you know what you need to do, it will become a lot easier to work with.
Do you think underclassmen tend to procrastinate more, less, or the same as upperclassmen?
I'd say the same, because I think there's different distractions for those different student populations. I think for the underclassmen, I think it's very easy because maybe they feel like they're very prepared for college and they think it's just going to be as easy as high school. And those first couple of semesters, they procrastinate a lot, and then they kind of get hit with reality of I didn't do as well. But on the flip side, I think upperclassmen are dealing with a little bit more going on in their life, especially as it revolves around career finding, whether that be going to med school, law school, grad school, or just applying for jobs. There's a lot more going on in their life that they need to be doing, acquiring internships. So there's a lot more moving parts for them where it's easy to lose track of their class assignments and their tests and things of that nature. So I think probably at the end of the day, they both procrastinate the same, but there's a lot more that underclassmen can do to prevent it rather than upperclassmen, in my opinion.
And then the last question is, do you think technology helps students or hurts students in terms of procrastination?
I think it hurts, for sure. I bet there's reasons that you could say it helps, but I'll always be on the hurt side just of video games and just obviously social media, just being able to get stuck down a wormhole of whatever you're watching and just not being able to stop scrolling. Because maybe, and even if you are doing your work, you're like, okay, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. You end up on your phone and then it's 25 minutes later and your assignment is only halfway done. So I think that part of it, and then I think also just same thing with video games. Those are as easily addicting as social media, so the same sort of stuff happens when you get into the video game side of things with technology as well.
Thank you.
You got it, dude.
So my name is Megan Springmeyer, and I am a marketing executive. I work at MERS Aesthetics. So MERS is a pharmaceutical company that's broken into two different portions. One side is MERS Therapeutics, which do things for different health indications, and one that I work on is MERS Aesthetics, which is their aesthetics and beauty organization. And I lead brand marketing for their scientific skincare brand, Neocutis, and then their aesthetic device, All Therapy.
Very nice. All right, so our first question is, do you think having a lack of motivation has anything to do with procrastination?
Oh, that's a good question. I think yes and no. I think that there are actually a lot of really successful people that are motivated by a long-term end goal, but still procrastinate because that's just how they get their work done. So over the course of my career and even in school, I've realized that there are people who kind of function and do their best work doing that kind of last minute procrastination. And so they'll wait until that ultimate deadline to get it done, but it still is great work. So, in my opinion, that's not how I work. But in
No.
my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that if the end result is good.
All right, and what are some factors that you think motivate students to get their work done?
Um, I think that again, keeping an eye on kind of that long term result would be a big motivator. I think looking back at, like, I was in college a very long time ago, but I am in grad school now. So now I think about what motivates me to do well and get my work done now is that long term goal of eventually having my MBA and being able to say I have this experience and knowing that will take me to the next level. So I think from an undergrad perspective, it would be a great idea to motivate students by kind of keeping their eye on the goal in that sense. So figuring out the best way to apply that in class knowledge to something that they will utilize down the road and hopefully in their professional career.
And do you think fear of failure has anything to do with having a lack of motivation?
Yes, I think most people have fear of failure. And so I think that it's really how you utilize that fear. So I think that some people are motivated by that and they want to overcome that fear and accomplish a certain goal. But I think a lot of people are scared of that feel and that fear, and that can certainly impact motivation. So a lot of times they'll just kind of, procrastinate, not feel motivated just because they're nervous that the end result won't be as what they're hoping.
So, what do you think common factors are that make college students and or students in general procrastinate?
I think that students now procrastinate more because they give their attention to other things. I think like some students are preoccupied with trying to make a name for themselves on social media and becoming like an influencer, and they just ignore their studies and other things that are important. I also think that some students are concerned with um, building a life for themselves. Some students have to work to provide for themselves and provide for family members in some sorts. So they have to balance the adult factors in life along with going to school, and sometimes feeding yourself versus completing an assignment. Feeding yourself is going to come first. So they push all the things all the things due to school back until they absolutely have to complete them.
Very nice. Okay, and what do you think are some motivating factors that would serve as like an incentive for students to get their work done?
So I would say for students, motivating factors would be just getting good grades and completing assignments for the ultimate goal of graduating or going on to um, a master's degree or PhD level, just getting all of those things done so they can eventually land the job they want to have or start their own business and just move forward and become productive members of society. I think that should be the ultimate goal.
Right. And then do you personally have any motivating factors since you're in the working world now? Do you have any?
I think like now being in the working world and having a family to support post completing college, my main motivating factor is providing for my family and furthering my career so I can continue to provide my family with the best life that I can.
Very nice. That's very sweet. Why do you think students are so unmotivated to do their work?
I think the biggest factor now is that students have the information available. They don't have to, I'm dating myself here, but go to the library and research or plan a time to seek out answers. It's all on the internet. And now that you have phones with internet capabilities, you can, I mean, wait until the last minute, look it up on your phone at Starbucks and send your paper in. So I think the overabundance of information and availability for information, it's at their fingertips. So you can do it on the fly. You don't have to pre-plan.
Right. And then my last question for you is, does mental health play a role in having a lack of motivation and procrastinating?
I do believe that mental health plays a role in the lack of motivation and procrastination. I know that the current students have been through COVID years, and I mean, multiple school years of being kind of quarantined at home and isolated. I mean, they're used to doing things in their own time. So during COVID, you just kind of had to check your boxes and get things done, and you could do it as soon as the teacher gave it to you or like 15 minutes before it was done. So I think going back into the classroom after having the years of kind of being on your own is daunting. I mean, you're not used to the social interaction. They're not used to kind of the social cues of being in person, and that can just be like overwhelming just in a basic human response. So usually when people are overwhelmed or um, have severe anxiety, they just kind of push whatever task is going to relay those feelings to the back burner, so you don't have to feel the anxiety or feel the stress. So I think that after those COVID years, students are now kind of in a perpetual fight or flight feeling of, is this, do I really have to do this now? Can I wait 10 minutes? Can I wait 10 days? And then once the teacher sends that email like, hey, you're going to get a 0, then it's like, oh crap, I got to do my stuff now.
Right. Our first popular source came from Forbes, um, and in this article, Megan Bruno talked about how procrastination isn't always necessarily a bad thing. In some cases, it can be a good thing because some people work best under stress. It's really just about how you look at it. However, she did give tips on how to feel less guilty if you're unmotivated, and one of the ways you can do that is create a reward system for yourself. Every time you finish a task, you get a small reward, which keeps you excited and motivates you to get your work done. Our second popular source came from a website called Solving Procrastination, where Itamar Schatz talked about ways in which you can stop procrastinating, and one of those ways being improving your planning. And in doing this, you can set goals for yourself, break down tasks into manageable steps, and you can also try to change your environment, because this would make it so that you could be somewhere where you'd potentially be less distracted. Schatz also talked about the student syndrome, which is where students push off assignments until the very last minute, and this is due to the fact that procrastination affects students' time management skills, academic performance, emotional well-being, as well as their mental and physical well-being. Students also face anxiety and mental exhaustion. And lastly, for our scholarly source, we found a scientific journal that talked about how motivation is different for everyone. This journal explored some of the internal and external factors that students face when they are trying to achieve a goal, complete an assignment, or anything along those lines. And essentially, it was stated that to have a good sense of motivation, you have to manage your time wisely, be willing to work hard, and persevere when times get tough. There's also two resources at UNCW, the Counseling Center, as well as the ULC, that are there to help students who struggle with motivation and procrastination.